Millsy, where's the bank you're going to rob?
Sorry?
Where's the bank you're going to rob? With your balaclava on.
Tell you what, it's good.
This is Gary, not a fan of riding his DR 650 on rough roads, not a fan of emus.
Fucking bush chooks.
Loves a chat, is a concrete and stone connoisseur,
Really nice stonework.
and the organiser of this trip. This is Rick, or as we call him, Dickie. He loves his 690, enjoys a drink or 7, not unlike his bike, it's a thirsty bugger too. He's quite innovative and doesn't mind twisting the throttle. And me, Rodney Brown. I ride a DRZ 400, nicknamed Dozer. I love the outback. I love my Hammer maps, my drone, and exploring ruins. Millsy nicknamed me Gadget during this trip. I can't help it if I like to know where I'm going.
You're going to have to get used to this. Everything in place?
I think so.
Just for some rock climbing?
Yep. Got the abseiling gear, got the harness.
Day 1, we planned to travel from Mildura through Wentworth, then roughly follow the Darling River to Menindee. The wonderful thing about motorbike riding is it brings people together. On this trip, for instance, while I've known Millsy for a few years, we've only ever ridden together once. I'd only met Dickie once, and that was a get-together at a pub organised by Millsy to chat about this trip.
How's this gonna work? Oh yeah. And it bloody worked. Look at the shit.
So, because of our love of riding and the spirit of adventure, we find ourselves on a 10-day trip together. Undoubtedly, we will need to rely on each other to get through it. I don't know how either Millsy or Dickie will react under a little duress. We'll be living in each other's pockets, and there'll be testing times, just as there'll be plenty of laughs. I guess getting to know one another will be just part of the adventure.
Look at Millsy leaning up against the bar. He's got that pose down beautifully.
Would you like some poetry? Some bush poetry.
All right. This is a good bush tucker kitchen. You're doing well, Dickie. You're feeding us all.
Yep.
I like
You'll
it.
thank me later. Yeah, I like to stop for another leak.
The first day of an adventure ride is when you spend a little time making adjustments to your setup. The extra gear can make what was previously an easy task now seem like a major undertaking. Just ask Dickie how much fun he had simply trying to get on his bike. We came across this tiny cemetery which was in front of Mildura station. There was a welcome sign on the station front gate, so we rode in to have a look. Mildura station sits right on the banks of the Darling River, and the front of the building is quite grand. The owner came out to greet us. She thought we were a large group of riders she was expecting. She invited us in for a coffee to warm up in front of her open fire. We politely declined because there was a pub in Menindee with a beer or two waiting for us, and Cujo in the background there looked a bit hungry. One thing you can rely on when there's a drought. Where there's water, there's going to be animals. Either that, or Noah was building his ark somewhere. At this particular spot, you had kangaroos, emus, goats, sheep, cattle, all mingling together like one big happy community. Not too far down the road from Noah's Ark is heritage-listed Conchiga Woolshed. It was a station founded in the 1850s. In 1883, when it was at its peak, the property was running 160,000 sheep and employed 73 men.
Did you get a free beer as you walked in like I did?
Yeah.
Let me explain. As we rode into the Woolshed car park, a young fella was standing by his truck. We struck up a conversation with him. He was quite interested in our bikes and the trip we were doing. And to our great delight, he offered each of us a beer. Of course we accepted. He must have read our minds. Day 2, we planned to travel from Menindee to Tippabara via Packsaddle and a few little side tangents.
Yep, got Millsy. Yep. It's just a stream. Geez, I don't want to turn it into an X-rated movie.
For most of today's ride, I spent out front, clearing the way for Millsy and Dickie. At times I felt like God parting the Red Sea. The animals were everywhere. I don't know what their attraction is to the road, but they like it.
Thirsty though.
Kindly bowl.
Her initials is KTM.
Oh, could be Katie. Everybody's got a Katie. Make a move. Hi, Gadget.
As is the case with outback adventure riding on the roads less travelled, you tend to go through a lot of private property. On this particular day, the route that we chose took us through probably up to 40 different gates, some kilometres apart, some hundreds of metres. It did tend to get a little tedious, and because I'd mapped the route for the day on my Hammer maps, Millsy had, on more than one occasion, questioned my ability to get us to Tibooburra, usually with, "Brownie, do you know where we're going?" Occasionally we needed to stop to double check, and thankfully Dickie had a paper map that we could confer over, but clearly we made it back because I'm here to tell the story.
They're pretty close together, those two tracks.
What's that?
There's another track over there. We might not know if I've taken the right one until we get a bit further along.
No, I saw a sign back there and it will Kenya that way. And something else this way, so I think we're right.
Millsy led us for a small section, and he opened a gate for us and stood in front of the gate, and we filed on through behind it. Long after that we came to a house, and there was a heap of cars around and a heap of people sort of gathered together, and a lady came out and said hello and said, "What are you guys doing in here?" And we said, "Oh, we're just trying to get through to Packsaddle." And she said, "Oh, didn't you see the private property sign?" We turned to Millsy and said, "Didn't you see the private property sign, Millsy?" He's like, "No, I didn't see any sign." But they were fantastic. It turned out that they're having a barbecue with all the neighbours in the area. Some of them were travelling up to 2 hours to get there. They were going through a drought, and they were using money that had been raised by the other states to sort of have a little gathering. She said, in order to get through to Packsaddle, you've got to go through some of the neighbours' properties. They happen to be here, so I'll go back and have a chat to them and see what we can do. She came back a short while later and said, "Look, pay $10 a head. Come and have a barbecue with us, enjoy it, and then we'll let you go through." So we did. We had a barbecue, spent about an hour there chatting to the locals. It was fantastic, and then we moved on.
If we do this night, we'll never dawn. Now time is dear, it ain't no lie. And right about now, we should give it a try. Let's get on board.
Day 3 sees us travel from Tibooburra through Cameron Corner to Innamincka via a whole shitload of sand dunes.
Hanging on and on. Maybe there's
That'll
some
do it.
new stars going on and on. Maybe some never grow up. Maybe some never stop. Pick a destination at the back. Hold on. Hearts are gonna change, shift and find a way. We're all a part of a play. Maybe hope's a burden, maybe not. We got something good, something burning. Maybe what we got.
We were warned about travelling this way by one of the locals in Tibooburra. She told us that the sand dunes were treacherous, the road was terrible, and it was just far too dangerous. We couldn't have found it any more enjoyable. Perhaps it's the beauty of riding on a motorbike. A motorbike suspension absorbs all the bumps. We could travel along this road sitting on 90, 100k an hour, and most of the vehicles we came across were sitting on 50 or 60. Really, the motorbike's the best way to do it.
GoTRs everywhere. Gary?
Yes. Did they get here in one piece?
Cameron Corner is where Queensland, New South Wales and South Australia's borders meet. Other than the monument, at Cameron Corner there's a store, you can get some fuel, accommodation, and I kid you not, a golf course. First hole of Tri-State Golf. Looks a little dry.
About 44 k's to go, I think.
I've still got nearly half a tank.
How's yours going?
I won't make it.
You won't make it with that?
I'll make it with this.
Yeah, okay. Just pulled over so Dickie could put some fuel in so we could make it all the way to Innamincka. 690's thirsty. Just finished coming down the old Strzelecki Track. It's not that old, it's actually a very nice track. And then we meet the new Strzelecki Track. It's just a bit wider.
On the map, I thought that was going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, it said that it was a skinny, little broken brown dotted one, so it should have been similar to the one we did yesterday.
That's what I thought it was going to be.
In the planning for this trip, 2 days were set aside for us to explore Innamincka. The first morning I got up early to have a bit of a look around. It really does have a lot of natural beauty, and when you put the drone up you can really see how barren the landscape is, and there's a real beauty associated with the outback and this creek that runs through, which it's hard to believe, that it floods, but it does. Here's proof. So I've just walked from Cooper River, probably 300 metres, came across this sign, 2010 flood level. This would be about 12 metres higher than the regular level. Actually, there is a sign just over there on the side that actually says 12. That's a lot of water. A lot of water, and it's hardly flowing at the moment. In fact, it's not flowing, it's stagnant. Have a look at the bottles, they're all smashed. There's a photo inside the Innamincka pub over there, and it's this big pile of bottles, and they reckon it was at its greatest it was like 2 metres high, so it was all from the pub. And over the years, the floods that have come through have moved the bottles. The rest have been smashed, or tourists have picked them up and taken them as a souvenir. Not walking through there, that's just a lot of glass. As towns go, Innamincka is never going to win any prizes for beauty. In fact, most of the architecture and the buildings seem to be designed for practical reasons only. A lot of the solar panels were doubled as roofs. Innamincka wasn't what I was expecting. I didn't do any research before we left. But I had a vision, and this isolated town in the middle of nowhere looked nothing like my vision. I can't imagine how difficult it would have been for the early settlers out here in this harsh climate. There's a lot of natural beauty, but the makeup of a person that decides to make a living from living out here, they would have needed to be tough and resilient. We decided to head out to the dig tree and have a good look around. We'd met up with a guy, Tim, that was staying where we were staying, so he joined us. That's Tim on the right there on his trusty DR650. In the outback you come across all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Now this was not my first trip through the outback, but I still am amazed when I come across wild packs. It's probably not the right terminology, but brumbies. Is that right? Brumbies, wild horses. Beautiful looking animals in the middle of the desert. Unbelievable. How adventurous are these Citroen owners? We came across them in Innamincka. I didn't actually stop and have a chat to them, so I don't know their story, but there were 4 or 5 of them that were travelling, and we actually crossed paths a few times. Now, you might have heard about the famous dig tree. I didn't know a whole lot about it before we got here, but let me just give you a very quick overview. In 1860, the Victorian government sponsored an expedition where they wanted to get from the south of Australia to the north of Australia. Robert Burke and William Wills were chosen, and with 18 men in total, 20 camels and about 22 tonne of provisions, they set off. The dig tree was made base camp, and Burke and Wills, King and Grey separated from the main group and headed off to do some exploring at a much quicker pace. When they returned some months later, they discovered that their team had deserted them. Ironically, they had left the morning that they returned. Their team had carved a message into the dig tree. They'd buried provisions for them not far from the tree. So that's why it is famously called the dig tree. For those of you that might be interested, the markings you can't actually see in the tree anymore. They've covered them over to preserve the tree. The tree is in fact a coolabah, and they believe it to be 200 to 250 years old. When the main expedition team made it back to civilization, they organised for a rescue team to set out to find Burke and Wills. And eventually, when they came across the Burke, Wills, Grey, King team, only King had survived. About 30 metres from the dig tree is Face Tree, which was carved in 1898 by a guy called John Dick. It's a carving of Burke's face. On the way back from the dig tree, I decided to separate from the 3 guys and see if I could find the tree in which Burke passed away under. I also got the drone out to film this beautiful little area. This is where Robert O'Hara Burke from Burke and Wills fame. This is where he died. This is the monument or his grave. They call it a grave, his grave, so he must be buried here.
Sandy area under a tree. 100 metres or so from the water. Not bad. I stashed my tank bag and my helmet in here for the walk-in. Didn't need to, no one else was here. Ultra cautious.
Sky is turning red, and I don't know if it's forbidden or beautiful. Yeah, blue sky is turning red, and I don't know, should I be scared or grateful?
At Innamincka, you have two choices for food. One, the Innamincka pub, and you pay through the nose, and the second is the Innamincka trading post, where you can get hot dog with the lot for $9.50. Didn't even have to think about it.
So Tim's got his steak sandwich from the Innamincka hotel. Look at the presentation. And then if you step 20 metres up the road and you go to the Innamincka trading post, you get your own polystyrene packaging. How's it going, Gary?
Chicken burger's pretty good actually. I don't know where they got the chook from out here, but
Dick,
very good.
you look happy?
Perfect.
Today is our single biggest journey of the trip of 560 kilometres. We have the largest gap between fuel stops also. From Innamincka to Lyndhurst is roughly 530 k's, so we're going to be heading down the old Strzelecki Track via the new Strzelecki Track and then into Lyndhurst full up, and then we're going to head north to Farina to check out the ruins. Then we'll do a U-turn and travel back to Copley, where we'll be staying the night at the Lee Creek Hotel in Copley. Sometimes when you're on these long straight outback roads, you need to entertain yourself. Every now and then a cattle grid would come along. I saw this as a wonderful opportunity to see if I could jump the DRZ. And occasionally I had success.
What can I do? You have to get over it for something new.
Now here's a common problem we face riding in the outback. Overtaking trucks. Alright, you tell me when it's safe to overtake.
We're gonna steer this boat to safe land. I'll do my best to understand. How does it hurt? Like tearing up a hole inside you. For what it's worth.
Fuel time? Need more fuel? I knew it was getting close, 220 k's.
I tried to be as conservative as I possibly could.
Gotta try and straighten up my bag.
I'm with you all through the night.
The Monte Collina bore was sunk in 1903, and it's created a wonderful oasis in the middle of what is essentially a desert. The water's warm, the plant and bird species in the area clearly love it. Have a look at that, there's just nothing else around.
We're down in the dirt. You got me here and now we're together. Know how it hurt.
Whoa. Bath. So warm. smells like bore water. You know how I mentioned the crazy things we come across in the outback? Well, check this out. This is a gentleman and his wife, and they've been travelling with their camels almost non-stop around Australia for the past 12 years. The man mentioned to Millsy that his camels needed water. We were able to suggest the bore would be a good spot. It's only about 10 k's down the road. He was quite happy to hear that.
But I am done. Yeah, I'm done.
At about the 430 kilometre mark, dozer needed to be topped up. Not a bad effort. These safari tanks are supposed to be 17 litres, but mine holds close to 21. I've managed to get 460k out of a tank. That's still the record. But when it comes to fuel economy, Millsy's DR650 was the king. He did this entire trip today without needing to refill, and when we did fill it up at Lyndhurst, it had plenty to spare.
We are the gallows.
In 1878, the first stones were laid for the Farina Telegraph Office. In 1896, the town reached its peak in population of 300 and had roughly 50 buildings. Nowadays, Farina is being lovingly restored by a group of dedicated individuals hoping to keep the history of the Australian outback alive and well.
Where the rebel tide. We are the monsters.
What's their names?
That's Bundy, that's Molly.
What's the first one?
Molly. This is Molly.
Yeah.
That's Bundy.
Bungie.
Bundy.
Bundy!
Well, I like Bundy already.
Under your bed. We hide in the dark. We are.
Day 7's not going to be a big day in terms of kilometres, but we are taking a scenic route on our way through to Parachilna. We'll be travelling through to Warrawena Homestead, where we'll be able to purchase a map which will take us along a track known as Copper Track, and mostly private land, and it'll bring us out to Blinman, and then we'll be able to work our way back through to Parachilna. It should be a good ride with lots to see, a number of different mines to visit. Looking forward to it. Alright, so we're just travelling along very slowly. There was an emu over on the right. We're just riding along, minding our own business, and then it decides to cut straight in front of Millsy. So Millsy's like slammed on the brakes, and you can see here that there was a very quick change of direction. To the left, skid, and what we're seeing here is point of impact. Now, I'm pretty sure that was the front of the bike. And if we go a little bit further up the track, Exhibit A, and very quick repair jobs happening.
There's a secondary side here, right?
Scratches, sore ankle, wrist.
Dignity.
Dignity.
Fucked.
I slowed down, I pointed. And you go slow and they still run in front of you. So what was that?
Fucking bush chooks.
Not long after that, emu ran into Millsy. These two buggers idled up next to me. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to call this one Dipshit 1 and this Dipshit 2. They have a really small head, a really big body. They're running alongside you. I've slowed right up and they just run straight out in front of you and keep going.
What do I believe? decide, 'cause I'm sober tonight. I cannot escape, I'm here till it breaks. Oh, how my heart aches. You keep
The Copper Track turned out to be a fantastic ride. It wasn't easy, there was undulation, a lot of dry creeks, lots of animals to avoid, but the views and the terrain was just fantastic. It was nice and challenging, it kept your attention the whole way, that's for sure. Millsy hurt his knee in that accident with the emu, so he plodded along while Dickie and I chose little tangents. If there was a hill, we'd go and climb it. If there was a mine to look at or a ruin, we'd stop and have a look at it. Then we'd turn the throttle a little bit harder than normal to catch up to Millsy. All in all, good fun.
still rolling the dice, still hoping to find a future for me. I'm still in this fight. I pray for the night to go easy on me. You keep blowing me out, I keep holding you in. I keep asking myself, oh, why do you still hurt? Why do you still hurt? Why do you still
Now normally I'm one of those people that doesn't have a problem finding his way around. I don't get lost very easily, but the instructions we had for Copper Track, I partly memorised them, put them in the sleeve of my tank bag, and then followed a track. A couple of times I stopped just to double check that we were going the right way, and of course that brought "Are we lost?" from my companions. Of course, there's nothing wrong with double checking. Much prefer to be 2 kilometres out of the way than 20. Anyway, we made it. Despite Millsy questioning me
Nah.
on more than one occasion. But I'd gotten used to this, so it was all good fun.
No. Not that I think I am. I'm just following the track.
Last year we went to the eye. I remember your smile reflecting the light. We didn't care what tomorrow would bring. It was only right now the sun was alive. Can still see you walk down the shore, holding in all the secrets, kept me waiting for the answers. The answers. Yeah. We can do it all again. I know. Somewhere down the line we're meant to come back home. We can do it all again. I know. I know.
As we were riding through the Flinders Ranges, I stopped to get some footage and noticed that my connection that holds the iPhone onto my tripod had come off. So I turned around and backtracked in hope of finding it. And you know what? Luck was on my side, which wasn't an easy task. Have a look how small it is.
We can do it all again.
Day 8's a pretty big day on the bike. You could travel from Parachilna to Silverton completely on the bitumen, but that's not what this trip's about. So Dickie and I spent a bit of time last night in the pub working out a suitable route through the Flinders Ranges and then pretty interesting dirt roads all the way through to Yunta.
Got this down pat now, Dickie. Soup maker extraordinaire. Pretty good meal actually. Breakfast, lunch, tea, morning tea, brunch.
This is the second time I'd ridden through Flinders Ranges, and I was surprised by its beauty the first time, and the second time I was still mesmerised by it. Would have loved to have spent all day just riding around, and I'll certainly get back there again and again. We had a big trip today, and not surprisingly, Millsy was very keen to arrive in Silverton before 4 p.m, well before all the animals start to come out and collect on the edge of the road.
I don't like to be the bearer of bad news, boys, but we've got nearly a 500 kilometre day today.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to be on the road after 4:30, sitting on 30 kilometres an hour.
It's only through this bit.
Yeah, but I mean, what's going to be out the other side?
Tar.
All right.
I've been through here. I've been on this road.
Yeah,
So
all right.
after Wilpena Pound, I think it's...
Oh, it's even before Wilpena Pound. It's tar. Yep.
Because it's an all-day ride.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a beautiful part of the world, so we get this over and done with earlier, then the rest is tar.
Yeah, I understand that, Rod.
So,
Just saying, I wasn't aware of that.
yeah.
But,
Well, no, that's why I went through it last night. But you can turn right, and it's a similar road all the way through to Wilpena Pound, or you can go here, and then it's tar.
Oh, I don't mind if you say we got a time later on.
Go through the gorge and then...
Go through the gorge, and then it comes out near Wilpena Pound. It's 29 k's through there.
Yeah, I thought it was like this for fucking hours.
Sorry?
I thought it was like this for hours.
Nah.
No, that's all right.
Here's what I feel, I don't need a better reason. You broke your heart, come use mine. My love will last, it'll stand the test of time. My love is real and it's not just for the season. Here's what I feel, I don't need a better reason. You broke your heart, come use mine. My love will last, it'll stand the test of time. It'll stand the test of time. The test of time.
Just as the sunrise starts to show, warming up the motorway. You know you felt this way before, but can't recall the time and day. Don't know if life is a small part of something greater. And when you get off this raging horse,
We pulled into Wilpena Pound for some breakfast, and then we were off.
ooh,
wildlife out here.
There is plenty.
Sheep, kangaroos, emus all mixing together. It's quite nice, that.
A few jumpers around. They're all different sorts, aren't they?
Yeah, different colours.
How you going, Knackers?
Yeah, alright.
Alright.
When we stop at the ultra, I'll take some more tablets.
Do you want me to put some more, rub some more cream on?
What was that?
Do you want me to rub some more cream on?
Yeah, but can you do it a bit smoother?
I've got fucking
Was he a bit
hands.
rough with you?
Don't shake so much.
Yeah, I know, I was nervous first time.
So peaceful out here.
Oh, good to visit, hate to live. Those energy gels in a tube. I don't know what they're called.
I've never tried one.
It's just like liquid jelly. And when you're low on energy, when I was fit, well, I did a bit of walking, you take one, and half an hour later you're fucking unbelievable.
So it's a gel of sugar.
I think it is. Fucks your teeth.
Do you know much about if you have an air filter and it's not breathing properly, it's, you know, dirty, notice the bike's not running as well, right?
Mhm.
So when it doesn't have the revs, it really labours.
Mhm.
Do you reckon that's because it's not breathing properly?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should have changed it last night then.
You can't really tell looking at it either, I don't reckon.
Yeah.
Um,
It was really quite clean on top, and reasonably dirty on the bottom. So
I've got
Have
a...
you used filter socks before?
filter socks.
No, I haven't.
You oil it up and you fold that over your
Phone.
air filter, and at the end, you know, if you're in real dusty conditions, you just peel this off halfway through the day or at the end of the day. Some people just use the Chuck Super Wipes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Don't know if life is a small part.
As with the previous day, if Dickie and I saw something interesting, we'd stop and have a look. We spotted this steep little hill with a monument on top. Dickie ventured up first, and to his great surprise, the track essentially finished right at the peak and was replaced by a cliff. Now, because Millsy didn't stop to have a look at these little detours, he would continue riding at his own pace, and that gave Dickie and I an opportunity to crank up our pace to see if we could catch up with Millsy. This was fun, although the odd dry creek bed like that one caught us out, gave us a nice surprise. I've got a nice little buckle in my rim as a reminder. When we arrived at Yunta, we filled our tanks up with petrol, purchased some lunch. I changed the air filter on the bike, checked out this big wind turbine, and prepared ourselves for a fairly boring trip via Broken Hill to Silverton. Although we did pass through a town which quite possibly has the most unfortunate name in Australia, Cockburn.
Did you ever love me? Did you ever love me?
Here's something you don't see every day. The first morning woke up in Silverton, walk out into the main street just to have a bit of a look around, and there's 3 donkeys lined up to get into the Silverton Hotel. It turned out they were waiting for their breakfast. It's a morning ritual. They didn't actually have an alcohol problem after all. Day 9 was set aside as a bit of a rest day, an opportunity to have a look around Silverton, and believe me, there's plenty to look at in Silverton. This place is unique, interesting, and like nothing I have ever seen before.
For the seekers, there's a way.
This is Mark. He's our tour guide. He really knows his stuff. Only problem? He's in the wrong industry. He should have been an auctioneer.
When the car got down the bottom where the rails flatten out, you take the windshield off the car and then it'll be hand pushed along the rails. do we get a chute area? A sheep fills the dirt from one level to another. You put the rail cut in that chute, you got a chute board, you lift that board up, and now fill the rail cut with oil.
See what I mean?
For the seekers.
Yes, yes. Yes, you're having a cup of tea and you're scone. Look at you. And here I am thinking that you're a couple of knockabout country fellas, but look at you. Very,
We don't have to
very
look like
civilised.
barbarians just because where we are.
Darling, let the river run, let the morning come. Darling, let the fire burn, burn. And we go.
For the last day of our trip, we woke up to discover that the Variety Club Bash was working its way through Silverton. They were actually stopping at the Silverton Hotel for breakfast, all 400 of them. The route for our last day is pretty straightforward. We're leaving Silverton, working our way back through Burke and Wills, and then straight south all the way to Wentworth and then to Mildura. Pretty much blacktop the whole way. When we rode through Broken Hill 2 days ago, we rode straight past this cemetery. The size of it amazed me. So I thought I'd come back, put the drone up to have a good look at just how big it is. Apparently, there are 60,000 people that have been laid to rest in this cemetery. We also rode past this solar farm. There are 650,000 solar panels. As you can see from this footage, it's huge. Jack, come. That's his freaking name.
Well, the New Zealand brown cherry.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to have to admit, we were being childish. We came across this name, Jack Come, and then we read across and saw what, unfortunately, Jack had passed away from. Premature explosion.
Middle of the road, it's just a feeling of a distant melody unknown.
We all agreed the Broken Hill Miners Memorial was an impressive structure.
I minded my own business till the day you took me home. You came into my life like a sweet embrace, swept me off my feet and made me whole again. You came in my life, I wanna see.
After 10 days of riding, exploring and learning, the trip must come to an end. This journey has galvanised my theory about people who live in the outback. They are some of the most generous, helpful and friendly people you will meet anywhere in the world. The ride from Broken Hill back to Wentworth, concluding our trip in Mildura, looked something like this. For most of it, it wasn't as exciting as what we'd been on, but as every kilometre we travelled brought us closer to seeing our families, at the end of the day, That was a pretty big positive.
My own business, never knew the life had just begun. You came into my life like a sweet embrace, swept me off my
To Millsy and Dickie, thanks for a great 10 days. Can't wait to do it again.
face. Never will I be the same again.
Thanks for watching. If you've ever harboured a dream to do an adventure like this, then stop dreaming about it. Book your date, get some mates together, and just do it.
Let me see your face again and take me to the place we first met. You came into my life like a sweet embrace, swept me off my feet and made me whole again. You came in my life, I wanna see your face. Never will I be the same again. Never will I be the same again.